of these.
All right, there we go. That should be everybody. All right. Can everybody hear? Okay,
Yes.
good stuff. So I appreciate y'all being here. I am in Denver at a conference for the FBI, so I apologize. It's been a crazy week. I've not gotten things graded as quickly as I'd hoped to, like I usually try to do. So forgive me for that. But being on the road is tough. So um, really, the reason I want to meet in week 6 is to talk about your final policy paper and kind of give you an opportunity to ask any questions if you have any concerns about the formatting or anything like that. What I expect, uh, things like that. So I put out an example document, and I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see. I'm going to share my screen. Can you all see that now? Oh, now we got
Yep.
somebody else waiting in the lobby. Let's see. Shoot. Okay, let's try that again. Chad, are you there? Okay, there you are. Okay, gotcha. All right, so who else is waiting? Oh, it's the other Chad. Okay. So you're apparently in here twice somehow.
Okay.
All right, so can we all see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right, so I put this document out a week or two ago. It's a go by of sorts, but not really because I don't like to put out an example paper for what I'm actually currently teaching because I don't want to give anybody an unfair advantage. So really the purpose of this is to show the formatting that I'm looking for, the way it's arranged and organized. So that's the purpose of this paper. If you didn't get it, it should still be in the announcement from like week 4 or week 5 or whatever it is. But if you don't get it, let me know and I'll email it to you directly. Basically, your paper, let's see, I've got the, here we go. So your paper's supposed to be, uh, what was it? It was 10 pages, maybe. Uh, yeah, I think it was supposed to be 10 pages. Yeah, no more than 10 pages, not less than 6. So between 6 and 10 pages. Um, One thing I want you to make sure you have, and remember, this is a paper I wrote when I was in postgrad. So this is APA 6, APA 7 wasn't out yet. So ignore the running headers and a couple of other things. But you have your title page like we're used to doing, but I want to see a table of contents that shows all of your major headlines, um, your introduction. Although now remember that APA 7 doesn't want you to actually call it introduction for whatever reason. So you'll just title it whatever your paper is, and not call it introduction. And then you'll have your different levels of headings. So I know, Kevin, are you here, Kevin? Can't remember. No, Kevin's not in this one. So in week 2 or 3 or whatever it was we did the last one, I went over this with Kevin. So a really easy way to do your formatting on your pages is to let Word do all that for you. So I'll just do a real quick recap in case you guys don't know this. If you see something that you're interested in that you don't already know, let me know and I'll get into it more after this so we're not taking up everybody's time. But basically, Microsoft Word will do all of your APA formatting for you. You don't have to worry about how to format in-text citations, how to do table of contents, how to do references. Word will do that for you. This tab right here that says references, if you look up here at the top, it says manage sources. So when you have a new source, like this week we're talking about the IACP articles. So you'll see you got 2 lists here, a master list, which is basically everything you've ever included in Word. And then your current list over here is the ones that you're using in this paper. So that way, this course we reuse material a lot. So if it was a resource from week 1 that you want to reuse in week 6, you can still do that. It's still right there. You just got to drag it over. So inside of this resource tab, if you click that new button right there, well, let me back up actually because I should point this out. So right here where it says style, um, you can change it to Chicago, MLA, ISO 690, any of those common formatting systems. But of course, we use APA. Now, again, I wrote this paper in APA 6, but the current version is APA 7. So make sure you select APA 7. In your managed sources, if you click new, you can pick what type of source you're referencing. So in most cases, it's a book or an article or something like that. So we have an article and a periodical for this one. You put in your author's name and hit add. It's just that easy, and you hit OK. Now, what's the title of it? And if you put in the year, whatever other information you have. So a lot of times we use online sources. So if you don't see a URL or a DOI listed right there, click on this show more right here, and there you go. There's your URL, there's your DOI. You have all these different fields that are available to you to fill in. Now, if you'll notice, some of them have a red asterisk next to them. Those are the ones that are required by APA formatting. If you don't know it, remember, if you don't know what date it was published or it doesn't specify, just put the n.d. That takes care of that part. So you would put that here in the, like, if you don't know, if it was published in 2023, you would just put n period d period, and that would take care of it. So what that does is you'll see now any of these resources, but here's our new one. So it tells you what the in-text citation should look like. And it tells you what the reference entry at the end of your paper should look like as well. But here's what's really cool about it. So let's say we're typing a sentence. We're just going to create a new paragraph here. And I'm typing a new sentence. And I want to reference that article that we just did. The great thing about Word is that you can reference using their formatting. You don't have to worry about, is it this formatting, is it that formatting? It does it for you. So if you go up under the reference tab where it says insert citation, if you find your citation from that list of current ones, so it's Smith, Jared, it adds it automatically. So see that we don't have to worry about typing anything in manually anymore. You don't have to worry about whether you missed a period, if you missed a comma, if you don't know whatever date. It does it all for you. So there are the times where we need to use a page number, or we need to omit the author because remember, I'm Smith and I'm typing. Because remember, when we include the author's name inside of the sentence, we exclude it from the reference. So all you do is click on it, and then this little thing here, just hit edit citation, and you can suppress the author if you used it in the title or if you used it in the sentence or whatever. You want to add page numbers 250 to 253. It does all that for you. So it automatically adapts the citation to what APA requires in that particular situation. It makes your life so much easier. Now, at the end of your paper and your references, so you'll notice I'll go through in this particular paper, we have Choi, Cornell, Law, Herman, Lee, Moore, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So we see a Smith here, right? But we don't see the one I just added. So we can actually, I'm going to, just for ease of demonstrate, I'm going to delete this altogether. And we're going to create a new bibliography. So at the end of your paper, remember, always do a page break instead of hitting enter a bunch of times, because that helps it make sure it's in a new page. Go up here to your reference tab again, and right here where it says bibliography, in APA 7, we use the word references instead of bibliography, but I mean, really, I wouldn't count off either way. It doesn't matter that much, but all you have to do is click that and look, it formats it for you. You don't have to do anything. There's no more typing. There's no more remembering, did I do a hanging indentation? Did I Is everything in Times New Roman 12? Is the name of the publication in italics? You don't have to worry about that anymore. It does it all for you. So that's why I really like to push this, because as a grad student, it makes your life 1,000% easier because you no longer have to worry about that. Now, going back to the table of contents, any questions on that real quick before we move on? Okay, so going back to the table of contents, so you'll notice it's grayed, like when I hover over it, it grays out kind of like the in-text citations did. The reason for that is you see this little triangle here. When I hover over a header, it doesn't do it over the body text. It only does it over a header. Um, if you go back to your home tab here, all these boxes here that show us all these different ones, you probably don't pay any attention to them because I didn't before I was told about it. So it's not something that's commonly known. You have different heading formats that you can build into it. So in this case, you'll see it's a level one heading. That's what's selected up here. So if we know that in APA 7, a level one heading is centered, bolded, and in title case, meaning it's every word other than articles are capitalized, and it's centered on a left justification instead of on a half-inch indent, etc. What we do is we format it to do that, and then all you got to do is right click or highlight it and right click on it, and then go up here to your heading and just update heading one to match that. So now, if I want to make a new heading, let's say I want to make a new paragraph here, and I want to make that a new heading. So right now you see when I just create a new line, it automatically indents it my half inch, and it's like I'm typing like it's a regular sentence. But if I want that to be a heading, all I have to do is go up here and click on heading one, and now it's a new heading. So it takes all that formatting out for you again. But here's the really cool part about it is in your table of contents, all of these level one headings are automatically populated here. All of your level two headings nest underneath of their level one headings, and it automatically does the page number for you. So we've already got one here. So I'm just going to update it and see we have now it's a new heading. So it automatically puts it in there. You don't have to format anything. You don't have to worry about remembering to update your page numbers. It just does it for you. It takes a lot of the work out of this where you don't have to worry about it anymore. Questions about that? Okay. So the basic format that I'm looking for, remember title page, table of contents, a thorough introduction. An abstract, they kind of do away with in student papers in APA 7. It doesn't mean you can't have one, but it's not really needed anymore because if you look at and in fact, I've got one of you guys in class does this on a regular basis where you'll just copy and paste your abstract to your introduction because really they do the same function. They tell you what you're going to tell you. So I always follow that old adage of tell them what you're going to tell them, then you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them. So the introduction accomplishes that. So just give us a 35,000-foot view of what your paper is going to talk about. You want to hit your high points. So all these things that are your level one headings, basically introduce those topics. Tell us you're going to tell us about those topics. Um, Make sure you have those headings in there so I know what the sections of your paper represent. Organization in academic writing is everything. It's hard to read a paper that bounces all over the place. So if you're talking 1 minute about First Amendment right, and then next you're talking about Fourth Amendment, and then you're talking about case law, and then you're talking about legislating for the bench. If you're all over the place, it's hard to follow. But if you outline what you're going to tell me and then follow that outline, then it makes life a lot simpler for the reader. Remember that while it may make sense to you in your head, it may not make sense to anybody else. That's why I always recommend that you have somebody else proofread for you. If you don't have somebody else that can proofread for you, wait 3, 4, 5 hours and then come back and read it again. And that way you get a little bit of a cool off period. Um, so you go through your body text and everything. Remember page numbers top right. This was APA 6, so they're at the bottom. Page numbers at the top right, also in the same font as your paper. And then at the end is just your references. So add a conclusion, again, tell them what you told them, and then your references. It's pretty simple. If you, like I said, if you want some more assistance on that, I can send you either the tutorials inside of Word. If you go here to help and go to show training, they have tons and tons of tutorials here inside of Word. So let's see if we want to talk about, if you want to talk about references, you can, this will walk you through exactly what I just showed you guys. Um, So if you forget anything that I've showed you, but I'm also going to upload this recording later, so you'll have this for reference. But if you want some one-on-one, I'll be happy to give it to you. That way, we can make sure you get everything exactly the way you're wanting it. So that's basically the formatting that I'm looking for. Before we move on to content, any questions? Okay. For content, remember that this paper is designed to be a policy paper. So what we want to talk about is pick a policy issue. Now, there are tons and tons out there, and they don't have to be anything big and famous. You don't have to talk about like Roe v. Wade being overturned recently or partially overturned recently. It doesn't even have to be national scale. If you want to talk about something on the local scale or on the state scale, that's perfectly fine. Pick something that you can easily reference, something that you can do a lot of research on, something that you know a lot about. That's the best way to go because that way you don't have to struggle to kind of find sources and everything. If you already know a lot about a topic, then great, run with it. So pick the policy issue. And remember, we're not talking about the law. We're not talking about the public's perception of the law. We're talking about the policy issue itself. And we're going to talk about how it impacts the judicial branch. Make sure you include your timeline of events. So if your example is the overturning of Roe v. Wade, obviously the time to start your paper would be before Roe v. Wade, however long ago that was, back in, I can't even tell you what year it was, but whatever year it was. So really, if you're talking about an overturning of a case, your paper will start long before that with the events that led up to that. And then, of course, you'll kind of cover the intervening years, and then really when it starts to ramp back up toward becoming a new policy issue. So make sure you're covering all of the relevant timeline there. What the impact of the news media was. So we kind of covered that last week. What is the media's role in public policy? And I know we kind of got into the woods about shield laws and things like that, but really the heart of last week's content was supposed to be how do we impact public policy? And a lot of you guys hit it really, really well when you talked about how you can you see framing where they give you things only in the context that they want to give it to you in. They ignore stories that they don't want you to know about. They overcover stories that they want to harp on. So the media has tons and tons of ways to manipulate not only people but policy. Because remember, we as people can impact our policymakers through referendum, through voting them in or out of office, through petitions. So there are a number of different ways that media can influence policy. So remember that that's the key here is how did the media influence that policy issue and how it went through the legislature? And then has the policy change had any effect on administrative agencies? So in the example of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, we now have all these new federal regulations that need to be developed or maybe change current ones. So really just a recap of what administrative agencies at state, local, federal level are going to have to do to adapt to the new outcome of that policy issue. Remember to make sure you're specific in citing your information. It's never good to just say, research shows. Well, that doesn't tell me anything. What research shows that? Give me a specific. Now, if you only have one source, that's okay, but tell me what that source is. And that's that's something that it's a dead horse that we kind of beat. Um, Talking about shield laws is the credibility of your paper comes from your sources. That's why we are explicit in telling what information we list comes from outside of our own brains with our in-text citations and our references at the end. So make sure you're very specific about documenting any sources you use. And um, if you guys ever used an annotated bibliography, if you have, then you already kind of know this concept. We're not asking for one here. Not that I would count you off for doing one, but I wouldn't expect it because it's not that long of a paper. But an annotated bibliography is basically that. It tells me not only your list of references, but it also tells me what you took from every one of those references and how it applies to the conclusion you reached. So even if you're not going to do that on paper, kind of be thinking that in your mind so that you can make sure you're articulating how the information you took applies to what you're trying to get us to understand. One more thing I'll say on that is remember quotations that are direct. So if you use word for word or substantially word for word from a reference, it has to be in quotation marks. It has to be 100% of the time. It's plagiarism otherwise. I've experienced a little bit of that with some people in this class, and we've corrected a lot of those issues. But remember, if it's a direct quote or substantially direct, you've got to have it in quotation marks. But further than that, I want to encourage you to stop relying on quotations to make your points. We're not the point of this class isn't to assess your ability to take material from other people and put it onto a paper. That's not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is your ability to research, gather ideas, analyze them, and apply them in your own way, and tell me something new. So when you have just quote after quote after quote after quote, you're not telling me anything new. So what you should do instead of saying that author Smith said, and then you have a quotation from that article, paraphrase what that author said in that article, and then put your in-text citation and your reference appropriately. That way, it's your take on it. It's okay to have your take on these things. That's what we want to see. I want to see how you're applying information, how you're able to analyze it and break it down and give it new meaning within the context of the assignment. So remember, quotation should be reserved for when the words that that author used have specific meaning or when it can't be avoided because you're talking about a quotation. So if you're talking about a citation in law or a specific phrase in the Constitution, obviously you're going to have to quote it. So there are times where you can't get around it, but when at all possible, instead of quoting, paraphrase it and then reference it. One thing I want to point out is remember it's due Saturday. Everything on week 8 is due Saturday instead of Sunday, and that's actually a school policy. That's not even mine. I couldn't change it if I wanted to. So anything after that's going to be late, and it'll be up to the dean whether or not they accept it. It's not even my call. So I want to go over the rubric real quick, unless we have any questions before we move forward. Everybody good? Okay. So the rubric, I follow these pretty strictly, if you haven't been able to tell. So essentially, this is the guide. This is the roadmap to get 100%. Um, Now, I know it says no more than 10 pages, but really, I'm not going to ding you if you get over 10 pages. Now, I would prefer not to be reading 20 to 40 page long papers, okay? Because I have a life too, but I'm not going to ding you if you go over a page or two or three. So don't feel like you have to cut it out to get it down under 10 pages. I don't want you to, throw away good material just to meet that requirement. But remember, 6 pages is the minimum. So you'll notice anything under 6 is going to hit a pretty heavy point deduction right there. So you're going to get between 1 and 50 points instead of the maximum of 70 for that. The page count, word count are very important. I know a lot of students, and I kind of had this attitude in grad school as well. It's like, why is it so important? I got my point across. Well, you did get your point across, but you could have delved further into it. And that's what the word count and the page count are looking for is they're forcing you to go further. Your synthesis, analysis, and argument, how well you basically take that material and turn it into your own thoughts and then put those thoughts on that paper. Um, so here's your point breakdown on that. And then all of your questions, whether you were clear, concise, and comprehensive. So several times people have just forgotten to answer one of several questions on a discussion or whatever. Always make sure, like on the part up here where it gives you the instructions, make sure that you're hitting every one of these, that you don't accidentally miss something. That way you don't hit a pretty big point deduction. And then your grammar mechanics. This is another big one. This is 30% of the grade, basically. Um, APA formatting, I know that it seems nitpicky, but really, the point of grad school is to prepare you for an academic career. Now, you have professional degrees like I hold an MPA. That's considered a professional degree because it prepares you for entry into a professional career. In my case, public administration. But remember that with a master's degree, you can also teach. So you can teach at the undergrad, at the grad level, et cetera. So it's really designed to help you function at those levels. So APA formatting is very important. Whether you use MLA or Chicago or ISO or whatever it is, whatever your school uses, you have to be able to meet those standards. So more than just grammar and spelling and mechanics, APA formatting is extremely important. So you'll notice because of that, you have pretty strict guidelines on how many errors um, you're allowed to make and achieve whatever level. Um, Now, I do provide some grace here because I know I know how hard it is to remember all of the APA rules. There's a million of them. I get it. So there is some grace there. I try to be as forgiving as I can, but when you have one or two, it's easy to say, okay, well, they haven't made that mistake before, so I'm just going to write that off. But when it's something that recurs and recurs and recurs, and it's like every week, I'm trying to remind you not to do this, that, or the other, or to change something, and it just doesn't get fixed. It's harder to overlook things like that. So I want you to pay particular attention to your APA formatting. Using the Word features to do that for you will help you out a ton. And again, like I said, the tutorials inside of Word will help you with that. There are also other resources out there, or I'd be happy to go one-on-one with you or email back and forth with you to give you some suggestions on that. Um, Remember that standard English usage is not necessarily appropriate in academic writing. I can't think of an example of a phrase that was used, but remember, this is not informal writing. So don't write like you're writing to a friend. Remember that your audience is always assumed not to be me, but to be somebody that doesn't know you, doesn't know anything about the topic, and is literally learning from the very first word that you write what you're talking about. So always write your paper as if the person doesn't know that. That's why we write. You don't use acronyms without spelling them out first. You wouldn't say IACP without saying International Association of Chiefs of Police first. Remember, just pretend that your author or your reader has never read anything on the subject before. Avoid colloquialisms like, oh, I wish I could remember an example, but you wouldn't say things that you would just say to your friends while you're hanging out. You wouldn't say "get it done," or um, just any of those little phrases that you use. Remember, use proper English, formal writing, active voice. We don't ever want to use passive voice if at all possible. So you wouldn't say the task was completed. You would say I completed the task. Active voice is always preferable. Your sentence structure and spelling. I've reminded several of you about some clunky sentences. Just like I said, the best thing I can do is just encourage you to proofread several hours after you've written your paper. So put it down, go have a cup of coffee, go work a shift, whatever you've got going that day, and then come back to it later and proofread it again because you're going to forget. You're not reading when you've just finished writing, you're not reading what you wrote, you're reading what you meant to write. So you're prone to overlook misspellings and poor sentence structure or punctuation errors or something like that because nobody intends to write poorly. So you're not reading what you wrote, you're reading what you meant to write. So come back a few hours later and reread it, and I bet you'll find something that you're going to want to change. Okay. So I think that covers instructions and rubric. Are we all good there? Okay. So that is about it. That's really all the things I wanted to cover. So did you all get the sample paper? Do I need to send it out to anybody? Okay. Do we have any individual questions about anything? Doesn't have to be about the final project. It could be about anything in this class. Nothing?
Where do you
Well done.
find the sample paper?
Okay, so let's go back. What week was that?
4, maybe?
I think it was. It's in the announcements. So let's go
Oh,
to
no.
the announcements here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you go to the announcement for week 4, down
Yep.
here at the bottom,
Okay.
it should pull it up for you. Now, again, like I said, disclaimer, this is in APA 6 because that's what you used at University of Virginia, and it's obviously going to have some structural differences, but it gives you the idea more of the layout and the content that I want, not necessarily all the nice little details. So if you can't download it for whatever reason, let me know and I will email it to you directly.
Okay. I found it. I'm all set. Thank you.
So what else? Nothing? We're all good?
Is this supposed to be about a grassroots campaign?
Ideally, yes. So
Okay.
remember the idea of grassroots doesn't always necessarily mean it was 1 or 2 people in a garage like Apple Inc. that just built something and ran with it. So if you think about it, really, the civil rights movement was a grassroots effort because it didn't start in the halls of Congress. It didn't start in a state legislature. It didn't start in any kind of governmental body. It was a bunch of pissed off people that got together and said, we need to change this. So that's what we mean for the intents and purposes of this assignment is as grassroots. So find a policy issue that regular people said, we don't like this or we want change, and then took off with it. Find out how it affected the legislature. Did the legislature ignore it and not change anything? Or did they say, hey, you know what? Maybe these people are right and let's see what we can do about it. Whichever way it went, that's kind of what grassroots means for our purposes.
Thank you.
Mhm. All right. Well, if that's it, then I think we're done. Like I said, if you guys want some more one-on-one or have any follow-up questions, feel free to email me. I'm on a plane most of the day tomorrow, unfortunately. So I'm leaving Denver at like 10:30. But once I land, I'll have my emails and I'll be able to get back to you. So if it's in the middle of the day, I won't be able to respond, but I'll get to you as soon as I can. So just let me know if you guys come up with any questions or comments or concerns, and I appreciate you guys being here. All right.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.